This video is a bit different from my usual. It's a celebration, really. The end of the year is a time when I take stock of what I'm thankful for, what amazes and inspires me. And I'm here to tell you that, well, I'm sure you already know this, tabletop role-playing kicks ass. Look, pretty much everything in America has been moving in a winner-take-all direction for the last 4 decades or so. Everything is about network effects and economies of scale. This extends to cultural production, movies, fashion, music, architecture, even scientific research has succumbed to the great averaging out. All kinds of amazing stuff is being produced, but only a sliver of it gets noticed, and not always the best sliver. But you wacky tabletop role player, you are part of a subversive phenomenon that cuts against that grain. Tabletop role-playing is this oddball activity that is driven by widely divergent artistic and functional goals, by experimentation, by cross-pollination, and by this hard-to-describe melding of creator and consumer. It's a barely discernible blip in economic terms, but it punches way, way above its weight in cultural impact. And now more than ever, we need the kind of creativity it engenders. Okay, but before I go into that, let's back up for a minute. What do I mean by the great averaging out? Well, look at what was the dominant art form of the 20th century, movies. Now franchises dominate our movies. For example, since 2007, Marvel has released 37 MCU movies, with 8 more in development. That's a lot of sequels, crossovers, and just, in general, people running around in tights. Music lyrics are getting more repetitive. The music itself is more homogeneous, and young people are listening to a lot of music that was produced in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, possibly because music from those eras isn't as blandly predictable as much of what is produced now. And I get it. I mean, there's a lot of great 80s music, for example. I was a teenager in the 80s, and as Chris Rock has noted, there's usually a lot of love for the music you were listening to when you first got laid. But in 2025, listening to 1985's The Wild Boys by Duran Duran is like being in 1985 and listening to music produced in 1945. Rum and Coca-Cola by the Andrews Sisters, anyone? I mean, that's just kind of sad. There hasn't been anything new and exciting in clothing since the invention of the modern yoga pant in 1998. Architecture is stagnant because nobody wants to take a chance on something that might piss people off. Even scientific research is suffering because attention is as much a currency there as anywhere else. I could go on and on. The engines of cultural production are playing it safe, and the result is mostly bland and boring. Even the best TV shows are notable primarily because they stand out so clearly from most of the gruel being produced every year. A lot of this has to do with dialogue because streaming execs have realized that because casual viewers are only half paying attention to whatever TV show they're watching, they should have characters announce what they're doing before they're doing it. I'm not making this up. And shitification is real. But tabletop RPGs don't suffer from this stagnation. They don't treat their audience like they're dum-dums, and new game designers and players are constantly jumping in to put their stamp on the hobby. Every year, there are new games that explore wildly inventive settings, conjure up clever new mechanics, and invite us to take part in game sessions that really do feel different from what has come before. Tabletop RPGs are still full of such wildly inventive material, in part because other than D&D, which really is at this point a separate thing that happens to overlap with tabletop role-playing, none of them can scale up to the point where they actually are required to play it safe. In other words, being a niche activity where true scale is impossible allows all kinds of creativity to bubble up in tabletop role-playing. Tabletop RPGs have actual creative movements, OSR, indie, story game, etc., and mutations all over the place. For example, Powered by the Apocalypse birthed offshoots that became their own game engines. The fact that patents have been interpreted not to apply to game mechanics is a big part of this, along with the relatively low costs involved in creating a tabletop RPG. Tabletop role-playing is a hobby first and foremost, and again, leaving D&D out as essentially its own thing, it's only secondarily a market. Corporations can't screw up tabletop RPGs because other than Hasbro, they don't want to bother with them. The market is just too small in revenue terms, and it's too fractured. As a game company, it's just impossible to scale in the way that a publicly traded company requires. Everything that corporations can make money doing at scale, they'll take over. That's not to say that this is bad or good. It's just like saying kudzu is bad or good or fungus is bad or good. It just is. It does what it's programmed to do. But tabletop role-playing games don't make enough money for corporations to get involved. There's just not enough scale there. There's just this distributed, vast marketplace of one-person indie creators and very small teams. Even the biggest tabletop RPG companies are absurdly small in employee count and revenue compared to, for example, whatever your town's biggest physical retail store is. Yes, there are new editions of old games, but that's not stopping wholly new games from becoming quite popular. Also, there are families of game engines, but they're constantly shifting in popularity. Fate gave way to Powered by the Apocalypse. The Year Zero engine is getting quite popular. And whatever the new hotness is, the old games never really go away. Tabletop RPGs provide a broader range of stories and experiences than any other popular medium. More than video games, more than movies, or perhaps than even written fiction. Our hobby encompasses everything from solo games to collaborative games about being elements within a person's mind, to finding out who characters are by discovering memories, to running an empire, to surviving vicious combat against deadly mutants. The medium of tabletop role-playing games lends itself to creativity because the activity of playing the game is essentially a shared hallucination. You can make a tabletop RPG about almost anything because imagination is the key ingredient. The rulebooks can be beautiful artifacts, but they're only there to provide a lattice for the imagination. Our imaginations feed the events that grow like ivy around and through that lattice. In tabletop role-playing, there's no dependency on graphics cards or specific operating systems or on a big public company that controls the hardware your game plays on. If you really think about it, tabletop role-playing is wildly subversive. Every day around the world, thousands and thousands of people are getting together with friends, creating their own stories. Even the stories created in licensed games are their own creations. It's the antithesis of passive consumption. It's human moderated, human controlled, human created. Here's to more tabletop role-playing for you and your friends in 2026. And thank you as always for watching.